Borger, our chief political analyst, along with Shanlon, former federal prosecutor. So, Gloria, let me start with you. And, you hear Paula just talking to Peter Navarro, who is defiant and full of insults and demeaning comments about others. It would seem for the committee to do this now that they need something specific from Navarro. So what are you hearing?
Well, it would seem that way. Or in talking to sources familiar with what the committee usually does in these situations, it may mean that they have some information that they gleaned from other sources that are not reflected in the letter that they sent to Navarro tonight. Their letter was, specific about the stuff he said publicly, that he worked with over 100 members of Congress. And, this was his Green Bay sweep, as he talked about it, how they worked to overturn the election, and that Trump was aware of it, on board with this strategy. So they may have other sources that are saying more to them, and they want to hear from Navarro on it. As Paula said, he's not likely to cooperate. But I think they're just making this effort because they've got stuff from other places.
Right, which I guess would obviously be very significant, right? Do they need him to make for some information, or would they just simply like him, to put cherries on the top? Those things can be different, Shan, because Navarro's making it clear he mocks and disdains the committee. He will not cooperate. And by the way, he has a decent reason to believe that the bet of non-cooperation would pay off. Steve Bannon refused to cooperate. He was indicted 3 months ago. Nothing's happened so far that we know. He hasn't given the committee anything. He continues his regular life, podcasting, radio show, ranting, spreading conspiracy theories every day. So where does the Navarro subpoena go, Shan?
Well, I think if he doesn't comply with it at all versus complying with it, showing up, and then raising his arguments, that's one thing. If he doesn't comply with it all, they should make a referral, and the Justice Department should prosecute him for contempt. Because it's worth remembering that the prosecution for contempt isn't really to force someone to talk. That's an investigative function. It's to enforce the law. And that's what the Justice Department needs to be doing. They need to be enforcing the law here.
So, Gloria, what does this say about where we are? Paul's talking about they've talked to more than 500 people. That's a lot of people. And yet, when you look at, documents that may be very important that have been shredded or destroyed, it may be that you have lots of pieces that fit together, but not sort of the linchpins that you need. I mean, where are they?
We don't know. Look, they've interviewed huge numbers of people. Some have come in over the transom saying they want to help. Others have to be subpoenaed. I think they're waiting for the Justice Department to decide what to do, for example, with Meadows, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. And we don't know the count of how many documents they have that they are going through. I am sure it is enormous. And I think that's a huge task. And I think in some of those documents, you may be seeing some of the stuff that Peter Navarro has not written about. And so I think we do have a long way to go. This is an arduous task. And they are trying to reconstruct not only the 187 minutes on the day of January 6th, but also the days before and the days after, and who financed this. And so it is a huge, huge job, and they know they have a ticking time clock, which is the election coming up. So, I think they're working as fast as they can, but it's a huge job.
Yeah, it's huge. And as you point out, it's the crucial questions are, what exactly did Trump know or direct, right? These are the things that would really move the needle from some of the fundamental things that we knew from the beginning that they're working on. So, Shan, that brings me to the other reporting, which is the documents that Trump destroyed. The National Archives has asked the Department of Justice to investigate Trump's handling of White House records. We know Trump turned over records that have been torn up. It's been reported this week that Trump would go through certain file boxes and pull things out of specific files and rip specific pieces up, many of which we understand did not get taped back together. But there was a specificity and a method to what he was doing. What does all that mean to you? How likely is it that he could be prosecuted for that?
Well, the likelihood really depends on the temperament of Garland's Justice Department. But the Justice Department in the past has and should continue to take these kinds of referrals from other federal agency very seriously. And again, it's part of their job to enforce the law, to look at this. As Paul's reporting indicated, there's an intent question. That doesn't seem too hard to make in this case, that intent requirement. So they need to take that seriously. And I think it's rather ironic about Navarro asking way back when in this nonsense about a special prosecutor. Frankly, we need a special prosecutor to look at these high-level investigations of these insiders, what Trump was doing, because at the lower level, the actual attackers, that's got DOJ pretty busy, and it's got the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., my old office, pretty busy. They may need a special team for a deeper dive.
It's an important point, right? I mean, you've got hundreds of people right now going through the justice system for what they actually did on that day, in terms of violence. Thank you very much, both. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
And next, two leaders.